Hello and welcome to the Sabine Solution. I'm going to be sharing with you today what I have found as a therapist to be by far the most effective way of working with anxiety. I have used this method with many clients and I have found it to be incredibly successful and also long-lasting, which is key here. Do you feel trapped by anxiety? Do you feel that anxiety rules your life? Do you feel that it basically dictates where you go and who you see, or where you don't go and who you don't see? The one thing that's really worked, I find, in my practice is exposure therapy. Now, that might sound really scary. I think initially the reaction might be, oh, that sounds a little bit daunting. But exposure therapy, if done in the right way, is very effective against anxiety. I started to specialise in anxiety when a few years ago I was stuck in a lift in Australia in 45-degree heat and I experienced my first panic attack. I literally thought I was going to die. It was a very, very frightening experience, and I did start having panic attacks from then if I was anywhere restricted, such as tunnels or stuck in the traffic. And being a therapist, I had access to a lot of information, a lot of books, a lot of courses, and what I found was that it was very much about managing your anxiety. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I really want to manage my anxiety. I felt as if I had my old life and then this life with anxiety, which felt very much reduced. So one of the things that did concern me was I actually going to ever get my old life back? I used to be able to go on a plane, I used to be able to do all those things, and suddenly with anxiety, it felt as if literally home was the only safe place. I was left feeling that anxiety was like an incurable disease. Once you've got it, that's it, you've got it for life. Unless you were able to take some medication which would help, you really had to manage anxiety for the rest of your life. And I just felt that wasn't enough. And so I ended up doing a lot of research, I ended up reading a lot of books, and I did use exposure therapy in my practice for phobias, and it worked very, very well. And so I ended up almost devising a plan for myself.
The first step for exposure therapy is to write down 10 situations that give you various levels of anxiety, as I have done here. So for the example, I've written down being away from the home, going into a lift, and also being in a building with no windows. And all of those give me various levels of anxiety in this example.
Now that you've written down your 10 situations, I'd like you to mark them from 1 to 10. 1 being that you're feeling very relaxed, hardly any anxiety, you're aware of the surroundings around you, but you're not actually feeling that anxious. But 10 would be feeling really, really anxious, and possibly even to the point of feeling as if you might have a panic attack in that situation. So I'd like you to go ahead and start marking them with the least, the one that causes you the least anxiety. So read through your 10 situations and which one do you feel causes you the least amount of anxiety. So when you found that one, I'd like you to write a 1 next to it, just as I have here. So once you've done that, read through the other situations and which one causes you the least amount of anxiety with the remaining ones. And then you find that one and you write a 2 next to it. And so forth until you've actually completed all of them and they're all marked 1 to 10. So now you've got your exposure ladder in front of you. So what we're going to do now for step 3 is that we're now going to do goal setting. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at the situation that causes you the least amount of anxiety. I'd like you to set yourself a manageable and realistic goal looking at that situation. So for example, in my example here, going out of the front door causes a lot of anxiety. So if that was the case, I would suggest to a client to actually put their coat on, walk towards the door, and then if it feels as if anxiety is rising, take the coat off again, and then do the exercise again the next day. And then you would repeat that, because consistency is key with this exercise. You would repeat that until you felt comfortable and the anxiety would have decreased, and actually putting on your coat no longer causes you much anxiety at all. So if, for example, your goal was you feel slightly anxious going shopping, one of the tasks may be to actually go to the car park. So you drive your car, if you've got a car, you park in the car park and you stay there for a few minutes and see if your anxiety is able to decrease, and then you go home. And you literally do that on repeat if you can, obviously depending on the situations. So for step 4, you gently increase the goals that you set yourself. Step 5 is a really important part of the process. It is really important that you monitor your anxiety while doing those goals and those exercises, because it's important that they don't go above 5 on the anxiety scale. Otherwise, you would have what's called flooding, and that would actually make the situation worse for you and actually harder to be able to do exposure therapy on that particular situation in the future. So anxiety, unlike a lot of things in life where people say push through, do it, force yourself, anxiety is actually the opposite. It's really important to do one step at a time and actually really feel comfortable with that small step before you then move on to the next one. And I think that's one of the things that people are very surprised about, and that's one of the things with anxiety that's very different to how we work with other situations or other issues. So step 6. Step 6 might not be your favorite one, but it's definitely the one that's going to make the difference of whether this exposure therapy works or doesn't work, and that is consistency. Isn't that the way with so many other things in life? But it's particularly important when it comes to exposure therapy. It's better for you to do, obviously realistically depends on your situation. If it's flying a plane, you can't do that every day, but if it's walking out to the door, that might be more feasible to do. It's more important for you to be able to do a practice of your goal 10 minutes a day rather than an hour each week. So consistency is key here. It's really important to be able to get the results. And again, I'm going on about long-lasting results, but that's what you want. You know, there are lots and lots of tools that you can use for anxiety, which are great, but I think this is very much part of a process for a long-term result. So remember, realistic, small, achievable goals done on a consistent basis are the key to exposure therapy. If you'd like to see more videos on various issues such as anxiety, relationship issues or well-being, I will be uploading a new video each week, and so please subscribe, and I hope to see you again.